For coming today. This is an excellent turnout. We're very excited to see the interest in this panel. So I'm Jenny. I'm on the board of directors for the Interactive Society of Nova Scotia, also a producer at Gamemode 1. And we're very thrilled to host this panel of really experienced indie founders tonight. But first, I'd just like to mention a few things. First of all, a huge thank you to VOLTA for hosting us tonight in their beautiful space. They've been so accommodating and so nice to work with. We really hope to host lots of events like this in the future. Sure, round of applause for VOLTA. So on that note, so I help organize a lot of events with ISNS. If you have any ideas or suggestions for panels or topics you'd like to see in the future, feel free to shoot me a private message on Discord. We're really happy to see kind of what people are interested in and kind of industry topics they'd like to see. Also, in terms of an update for the ISNS, we have our AGM coming up. That is our annual general meeting. That will be Wednesday, March 25th at First Sight Coffee and Bar. So that's the same location we did it last year. So it'll be around 5:30 with like a 6 o'clock presentation. So if you'd like to come, Jordan's going to be speaking at that, speaking to some of the initiatives that the ISNS has done in the past year and kind of what we're planning for the future. So the panel will be approximately 90-ish minutes. We've got about 60 minutes planned for the actual panel, followed by a Q&A. So if you have lots of questions, we'll have lots of time at the end for that. And you're welcome to stay and mingle and chat or ask any one-on-one questions if you'd like to, up until 8:30, which is when we have the space booked until. So we've got a very stacked lineup that I'm very excited to introduce. So first up, we have our moderator, who is also a fellow ISNS board member, Shawn. So Shawn is a video game entrepreneur and creative leader with more than 25 years of experience across console, AAA, PC, web platforms such as FitBrains and social games. His background includes work on major franchises such as Warhammer 40,000, Dawn of War, Company of Heroes, and Homeworld, primarily focusing on top-down strategy and action experiences. As co-founder of Brueh Games, he helped ship Mighty Doom to over 10 million players worldwide, and currently teaches game and interactive art at NSCC. Next up, we have Shawn Davidson. So Shawn, round of applause. Shawn founded Gamemode 1 8 years ago and built it into the leading Minecraft marketplace creator. With over 100 million downloads and 20 shipped games, as a studio founder and game director, he has led projects spanning original titles and major brand collaborations, including Sonic, How to Train Your Dragon, Pac-Man, and Avatar. He is now focused on indie game development. And next, we have Daniel Nascimento. Daniel is a game developer, artist, and animator with 13 years of experience. Daniel started his career as a technical artist in the games industry. In 2016, he founded his own company, shipping over 20 games, ranging from solo passion projects to larger collaborative ventures. And next, we have Jeff Cameron. Jeff is a 25-plus year veteran of game development, with experience spanning indie startups, console AAA, and mobile free-to-play. He has founded multiple studios, including Brueh Games, and has collaborated with many publishers, such as Xbox Game Studios, Electronic Arts, and THQ. He is currently developing new games he has always wanted to play. And finally, not last but not least, we have Luís Brueh. Luís is a game designer and artist from Brazil, now living in Canada. In the last 2 decades, Luís has worked on more than 300 puzzle magazines and released 9 tabletop games, and so many expansions for them, including Keep the Heroes Out, Flame and Forge, Night Parade, Valknut, and the Dwarf 7 series. So another round of applause for our fantastic team.
All right. Thank you, Jenny, for the introduction. And we do have a very nasty sunlight coming directly into our eyes, so we can't see people.
Are there like any blinds that come down or not?
I'm not sure if the blinds are. But you know, I'm here with a very group of panelists, and I'm excited to do this talk here today with all of you, and hopefully you have a good takeaway. By the way, thank you all for coming. This is our biggest ever event for Interactive Nova Scotia. It was over 80 registrations, so give a big round of applause for everyone. And I am actually just as excited to get to learn more about some of the people here. Obviously, I know Jeff for a long time, for 15 years here now, in business together. But I'm super excited to get to know Shawn, Daniel, and Luís here on each of their own, areas of where they've been succeeding in games here. Luís has a background with board games, but there's a lot of things that kickstarted that we're going to get into there from those points of view as well that are very relevant here as well. First of all, if you hadn't seen it, GDC is on right now in San Francisco, so there's a lot of stuff going out. Hot off the press yesterday, Unity released this website here for their game development report. So there's a few slides in here as we go that have some kind of supporting quotes based off the messaging that we've been going through that I'll be sharing with you. But just to put it in perspective, this survey had over 300 developers ranging from indie people all the way up to enterprise companies with 300 plus people there all around the world as well. So very good insight there, good timing for this talk. And as you can see here, the very last line is they talk about studios are moving from the survival mode now to how to build a resilient and sustainable future in games, which is what this talk is all about. So, hot off the press here, I like to get into the elevator pitch. You're at a network event like this, or you're at GDC, you're talking to hundreds of people. Introduce yourself in basically one line or less of who you are, what your company is, and what you do.
It's a lot to cram into one line. Hi, I'm Shawn Davidson. I'm the Studio Creative Director at Gamemode 1. My day-to-day is kind of a three-pronged approach. I direct our indie game that we're developing in Unity. I advise our Minecraft team, which is a division that continues to ship great games. And I help to manage the studio of almost 40 people.
Thank you, Shawn.
Hello, I'm Daniel. I run my own indie development studio. Some games making by myself, some games with different collaborators. More recently, I've been making some games with Luís, translating some of his board games into a digital format. My company is about to make 10 years in November, so it's a cool, nice milestone for it. Yeah.
It's awesome. I'm Jeff Cameron. I've founded 5 independent studios, ranging 4 in games and 1 in animation. One was pretty successful with AlphaDog. The other 2 were moderately successful in that we kept the lights on, got people paid, and it's cool games. And some were complete disasters. So I've seen what good looks like. I've seen what bad looks like, and everything in between.
Hello, my name is Luís Brueh. I make board games, but I also have to design the game, a different hat to be the artist, different hat to be logistics, support, everything. So basically, I own a 1-person company, and I managed to make some pretty cool games so far.
Awesome, thank you all. A little bit longer than one line, but that's great. So first of all, we're going to get into a few slides here, and these are just topics of conversation. If you have questions, we'll have them we'll take care of them at the very end. There's a number of slides here that are kind of set up in particular orders and whatnot, so we just don't want to jump ahead on some of the questions that may come up. First of all, many people are in this situation right now, given here locally, that you're thinking about starting a new studio, given various reasons that may have happened in economic times. I know I'm one of them. So before, and this is putting going back a few years as well, to when you first wanted to start. And let's go with first starting your current or past, in the case of Jeff, it'd be AlphaDog, situations here. First question here, was it a push or pull, meaning, was it you making your own choice? Did you see a business opportunity, or was it creative freedom for you? Or was it more of a push when, there's layoffs and things like that happening, or other things that may have happened in your life? So starting off with that, push or pull, answering those questions.
Yep, sounds great. When I founded Gamemode 1, it was very much a mix of a push and a pull. We were developing games at another studio and wasn't really happy with the direction that was going. Saw an opportunity in the Minecraft marketplace. It was very fledgling in those days, which we were fortunate to have an in with Mojang from done some collaborative work with him in the past, like contractor work. And I was in touch with some great talent. We had some great ambition, and we saw an opportunity to make some games in a place where there was like really not a lot of games. It was mostly Minecraft textures and skins. And I had put away a little bit of money, and that was kind of just like the catalyst needed to take the big jump, I think. So yeah, a bit of both, which I'm doing.
When I started, I had already made many small games, like in jam games, experimenting with different things. I had a background in animation, and I could do 3D art, but I could not program. I tried teaming up with different programmers, didn't do well. Like the programmers ended up like giving up midway, and I would finish with like all the art for a game, but no game. So eventually I decided to buy a game about Unreal scripting, a language that doesn't even exist anymore. It was for Unreal free. And I started programming. I started being able to make my own games beginning to end. I was working at the time as a technical artist when I released my first commercial game, which was like my 24th game, if I count all the little game games. Didn't do well, sold like $3,000 on Steam, which did not pay for the time that I spent doing it. And I was like, okay, I guess I just gotta keep working for other people. But I didn't stop making games. So my next project was a small little project for a week in a game jam. That one, I put it out on HIO Game Jolt, and it started actually getting donations. I made $600 out of donations in a game that I made in 1 week. So I was like, okay, maybe I should actually finish this one. I set 1 month time limit, I did it in 1 month, and that one actually sold over $200,000 in a couple months. So I was like, okay, I can actually do this. I can quit now and be a full-time developer. And that's kind of how it started.
Awesome, thank you, Dan.
Yeah, when we founded AlphaDog, I was gainfully employed at Longtail Studios, which was eventually Ubisoft Halifax. Just sort of in a time in my life where I had little kids and a new mortgage, so what a great time to start a company. I don't know, it was a good opportunity. Met Shawn and some other folks that, give people great opportunity to get early on the iPhone. And I was just sort of like getting really good with graphics. How do we take all this experience we have in console and AAA and bring it onto the phone? So I love small teams, I like high energy, I like moving fast, and that's how you do it. It's a new indie studio.
When I moved here, I used to own an art studio back in Brazil. So like the first few years, I was still doing like art and managing my team abroad. But this doesn't like work that much for people that were used to like work in the same building, and now they're all in their own houses. So like I've been making games for many years, even before my studio, but not like for launching them, but just for myself. And then I met Konstantinos, which we already know, and he like fell in love with one of these games that I had made for myself, and he published it very quickly. So as my studio in Brazil started to like fade interest in my online, like not that studio was not working anymore, but anyway, I started like just making more games and started to see this as a viable thing. And eventually I opened my own company, and I started like releasing games on Kickstarter and stuff. And this ended my career of drawing to other people eventually.
Luís, why don't you just keep the microphone there for a second, kind of go back and forth. And I guess on that note, like with Jeff here, when we started the company, I didn't know Jeff, for one. I was moving across the country, following a girl, having a baby, and going through all life, those life changes, just as Jeff was too. We actually met through a virtual friend, a friend that he was working with, and then kind of connected, and then one thing led to another. One person drops out of this idea, the other one comes in, gets introduced, and then that's how that kind of came to be. So this sort of team, now that we're on the topic of teams, kind of formed organically in that sense. There were many conversations leading up to, yeah, I'm going to go into business with 2 other people that I knew, working relationship in the past, moving across the country to a place that I didn't know, and then ended up through all of these things working with Jeff for 15 years. So yeah, it comes from all different places. And as we are talking about team, and think about this from team, even whether you're a solopreneur or you're working with a team, but think of it also from who your partners are that you're potentially working with, as business connections or contractors as well, and just think of it all in that relation, Luís.
Honestly, I ended up doing a lot of stuff on my own, but of course, in my case, no one can actually do anything on their own. To deliver a game worldwide, you need to have a contractor in a warehouse in all continents, basically. You need to have some people to send replacements. You need to have so you will be building these relationships over time. So it is, even with contractors and stuff, it's relationships that you build. Also, from people that I was working prior to that, I still do work with these people nowadays in different projects, not in the same stuff, but and in different types of relationships that arise after that. So, for example, me and Daniel, we work together in many projects now, but as two separate entities, which is good because give you both more freedom, but at sometimes finding someone reliable is always beneficial. I would say if you can find and work with more people in your team is better. Doing it on your own is hard. But at the same time, if you can finding yourself to do most of the stuff, then you cannot create excuses, right? So you have just your own to blame. So I can see the benefit of both approaches.
Thank you. Jeff?
This question's on team formation?
Yes.
Okay, so so we had three of us to make a game. We raised a bit of money, and we decided, all right, the big money raise wasn't going great. We just had a little bit, so let's put our heads down and jam Gamemode. So it took 6 months, the three of us. So it's an engineer, a designer, and an artist, and then we had a couple of contractors for concept art. Voice acting, and some character art, I think. We jammed a game out in 6 months. It was an action RPG called Wraithborn that we put on the iPhone was the first build. And then we set to work kind of making all the ports. Android, Google Play wasn't a thing at the time. It wasn't a huge thing at the time, it was just kind of growing. So we started with all the, there was a thing called the Ouya, people remember that. We hit that platform, and Kickstarter, and that was sort of, that game then got us everything else after it, because you have this piece of okay, it was successful in some areas of the world. Korea did really well in Korea. And then we set ourselves to learning free-to-play, because we didn't know anything about free-to-play at the time. We released a really cool console quality game on the phone for premium, and then changed our business model really quick.
I started as a sole developer. I was already an artist. I learned how to program and did many games just by myself. When my first commercial game was about to happen, I actually was partnering up with a sound designer / musician. So that was the one thing that I could not do in my games. I did not do music. So I got that first collaborator. We found each other online on a game jam as well. Game jams are great to get your feet wet in the making small games with a very limited scope, because there's only so much time for you to do a game in a game jam. But also to meet other people and see if you actually jive working together, because you might not. You might find that you don't like making a game with this person. So it's good to have a little taste test before you commit to something long term as well. Later on, I hired some contractors. Nowadays, I don't have any contractors anymore, but that was just normal process of posting on LinkedIn, hey, I'm looking for someone that can do this kind of art or music or code. But I think there's much more in my area. Our collaboration was very kind of organic, I guess. I bought some of Luís Brueh games on the different events over here. I think Bitten was the first one. We met, we talked, we're both Brazilian, and we met each other in different events, and one day he messaged me hey, you make games, right? Maybe we should do something together. And I was I really like this game you made. Could make a digital version. So that's kind of how that started.
Great. I guess a little bit of background first. Before I founded Gamemode 1, I had founded a number of other studios doing different things, not exactly games, but I was in the Minecraft space for kind of 6 or 7 years professionally before I started Gamemode 1. Some of those studios did well, some of them not so well, just kind of how it goes, and it had built up some, I guess, resilience to that risk. But the Minecraft space is very different, obviously, than some of these other spaces that we're talking about here today. It's very community centric. So I had met quite a few talented people online before I founded the studio. And I think, I was fortunate enough to be able to self-fund Gamemode 1 by myself and be a solo founder. I had worked with some other founders and in partnerships in the past, and honestly I was kind of at the point where I was just sick of it. I'm like, I just want to take the stab myself. These days, I guess for context, I run the business with my wife, which is fantastic. So definitely not opposed to finding a good partner to work with, but it is really a matter of finding the right person and not just somebody you're a good buddy with. But yeah, when I started, we had quite a few contractors that I was working with. We cast a pretty wide net, and I didn't necessarily have the best taste in talent when we first started, but there were a number of folks who really stood out and helped me understand what kind of people I could build a team around. And I guess for our intentions, it was we wanted to make a number of games. We wanted to be around for a long time, and we wanted to use Minecraft as this stepping stone platform to be able to launch into the greater games industry, because we saw there was some good cash potential. It was an easy in, and it was a good opportunity for us to learn how to make games in a really quick cycle. But yeah.
Oh, those are good topics that we're going to get into as well. So gonna love to know more about that on the Minecraft side. The last part of this is that, and we can go over this a little bit quickly and go on to the next slide, but when it comes to the team and the people that you're working with, how did you set your expectations early on? And more importantly, what was everybody's sort of runway like? Like in terms of runway, how much financial, liability could people just have to continue this new venture with you? We'll get into marketing stuff a little bit later, but just answer those two questions, the expectations and runway for the team. So runway is really how much time did you have to make
how much money
to
did
do
we have?
what you could do?
Yeah, absolutely. For us, the turnaround time to get our first game out was I think it was maybe 1 month. So it was very short. We were in the red for the first full year, despite having shipped, I think, 3 games in our first year. So during that first year, I put all of my life savings into the studio. We were kind of getting to a point at the end of the year where I'm like, are we gonna make it? My team was patient. I think I had a couple delayed payments and stuff to them. I was also I hired a lot of contractors. The contractors that I hired were almost exclusively on the dev side, so I managed all of the business logistics as well. But yeah, runway-wise, it was sketchy for a while. We were to get to the release of our first game, we were all bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and then after that release, we're like, okay, we need to. This did good. This did okay. But the cost of running a team at this size, and this was comparative to the size of the team I was running previously, but in a different space, it was just I hadn't fully wrapped my head around that. And then just after around kind of the first year, we had our first big hits, and those were not more than just to sustain us, but to allow us to figure out how we want to actually make games and find our target audience and set the studio up for success for kind of a year or so to come. So they gave us about another year of runway. And then it was kind of a snowball effect from there.
My reality is very different. My development started almost as hobby development on the side, as I was working for another company. So there was basically no team. I had this friend that did music, that was doing music for my game, but he also worked a day job doing something else. He did IT. So there was not much expectation in terms of okay, this is going to work and it's going to change our lives. So it's more we want to do this and we want to put this out there and it's fun, we're having fun. So by the time that the game actually worked out and I had money to go full time, I wasn't in the red because I had a job on the side already. So it was a very different experience. Nowadays, the previous games are still coming in with money. Every Steam sale, the games still sell a good amount. So there's still money coming in from the previous projects that help fund the next projects as well. So there's,
For Alpha Dog, I think we gave ourselves about a year of runway. We released that first game in 6 months. We were also in the red for a little bit. Race 1 did pretty well for us, enough to say, hey, this is good and we're having some success here and we won some awards and people know who we are. But selling a premium game on the iPhone was a really difficult business model at that time. So yeah, I remember like when we first launched it, overnight it had like, we could see the data, like a few 100,000 sales. We're like, oh, this is going to be great. We've done it, but it turned out like 80% of those sales were piracy, which Apple kind of pretended it wasn't a thing, but it was a huge thing. So we said, oh geez, now we're going to have to do a back end, and we can't have this, and so we had to learn all these things to figure it out. But like I said, we were in the red for a while, but it was enough to kind of like make a name, and just every next step got easier, the next contract got easier, the next publishing deal got easier. From there. Oh, but just to mention, we did, for expectations, have a really bulletproof partnership agreement in place, so that if people left or moved on or things changed, it was really easy to track what sort of the next steps were.
To me, like Daniel, like I was doing something else at the same time that I was like growing this business side. So like I wasn't at first putting all of my cards in making my own games. So at some point I had to take a leap. I had to take a leap because I was like, if I'm doing like half my focus here, half my focus there, none of these will actually work. So I was like, okay, I believe that in these like drawing studio of mine, whatever I could grow, I already did, and I don't see how this could get bigger from here. And then in the games, I was like, I think I'm starting to make something, and I want to give me a chance to see it done. So like what I did is like I got my savings. It was like, okay, I have some games that I've been making for like years, and I will give myself 1 year to finish this and get it on Kickstarter and stuff. But I knew that the first campaign on Kickstarter is always small because people need to believe you and trust you. So I just made myself like a little game in 1 month. So while these people would get this game delivered, I could finish the game that I actually wanted to make. So like, and so far, like I always try to keep these like 1 or 2 years ahead of leeway, because if this game doesn't work, then the next year I can have a different one, and so on and so forth, basically.
Excellent, thank you. So good takeaways here. Generally, for a few of you, getting games out quickly, a month or less, getting it out there, getting things going. In our case with Jeff, it took 6 months to get the first game out, which was still at that time pretty fast on Unreal Engine 3 on mobile, which nobody was doing. 0 to 6 months, kind of the general takeaway. I think that's, from what I see right now, 0 to 3 months is kind of like where you're trying to get to the prototype stage these days to start building an audience, put out your model and whatnot. We're going to get into a hot topic here. Now, setting up a business. We can talk about setting up a business for like all day and all night if we wanted to, but we're not going to. I want to roll through some of this stuff a little bit quicker for this particular side because I think some of the other ones have more meat. But when it comes to incorporating a business, there's various levels here that we can talk about. When it comes to roles and equity split, it's probably just Jeff and Shawn there on roles and equity split in terms of teams.
We're one-person company, so
Yeah.
It's still as one-person company incorporate.
Yeah.
Because
Go ahead.
Then you can claim expenses. If you don't incorporate, the government will take your expenses as part of your income. So this is a mistake I did. So don't do it. If it has one person, become a company.
Also for organizing your taxes, like my finances and my company's finances are completely separate.
Yeah.
So I try to only pay myself, which I'm doing with dividends right now, enough so I don't go to a too high of a tax bracket. So I leave some money in the company. Like with a corporation, you can do that kind of like a management.
Just to jump on that side as well really quickly, for Gamemode 1, it's very much been the same thing, kind of continue to reinvest as much of the capital that we earn back into the studio, and kind of like I'm going to take out really what we need. I think that's the sort of thing when you become a founder, is like the company is an asset that you own, if you're making ends meet, really that's the most important thing. And if you believe in kind of the long-term vision, it's a continued effort to reinvest in yourself in a sense, and reinvest in what you're building and the team put together.
Yeah, and Shawn, while you have the mic still, and
Yeah.
then you can hand it over to Jeff. But as we're talking about incorporating the business, there's various costs, right?
Yep.
As I take it, you might have shareholders agreements and whatnot. in
No,
place.
I was the sole shareholder. Shannara and I have a shareholder agreement now,
Yeah.
but I was when I founded it. Yeah, and also on the incorporating the business side of things, like I think we were $1,000 with a paralegal, like 8 years ago.
Similar to
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a pretty straightforward process. Just a little bit of upfront cost.
Okay, and then Jeff, do you want to talk about some of the shareholders agreements in the corporation?
Yeah, I want to share our passion for corporations that we all seem to have here. The other thing is you can't ship a game, you can't sell a game in a store without a corporation, right? Like the Steam store, the Apple store, they all ask you for your certificates and
I
proof.
think you can do like a sole proprietorship or something. I think you can.
Okay.
Yeah,
Like you should.
but you should.
Yeah, agreed. It's all good reasons as to why you should have a business in place to protect yourself. What was your question?
This is so exciting. We're talking
Yeah.
about incorporating businesses, not
Yeah.
finance.
Yeah.
And so incorporating a business, so we did this, well, I guess we'll say we did it twice, but shareholders agreements and incorporating costs, that can be a variable there, depending on your lawyers and all that stuff, but do you just want to touch base on that and roles and sort of equity split at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts on it, when do you need a lawyer? If the game is more important, if you're cruising on the game, and great. But the first thing is you have to have that honest conversation of what are the expectations here? What does everybody expect to get out of it? What's everybody's runway? That's the most important bit because it'll help define any sort of shareholders agreement you might have. What happens when someone leaves is a great question. If you guys are pouring your heart and soul into this thing for 6 months and someone gets a job doing something else, and they're not, these are difficult questions, difficult discussions to have. You got to have them with your partners. Equity splits and stuff. If everybody's taking a risk, then if you're working for free, I would expect some level of equity, right? Like you shouldn't be working for free without some sort of put in place or equity. That said, if somebody's doing all the work with Shawn and bringing all the capital and employing people, then there's probably not a whole lot of equity to go around. But usually that person keeps the equity on the upside because they're taking all the risk. Is usually how it works. That would be my basic, I think, kind of thoughts on the subject.
Yeah, I guess on top of that too, when we first started Alpha Dog, it was 3 of us, we were 33% each. When one person left, we bought that person out, then it was a 50-50 split for us. So we were both founders. We didn't have a CEO title or anything like that. We introduced ourselves as either a co-founder or a founder, depending on who we're talking to. So it was very much equal. Equal in the terms of roles with decision making. We're largely in the room at the same time, but if you're in the meeting separately, we both had the power to make decisions, those sorts of things. So those are the sorts of things that you do want to think about if there's 3 or more people, especially in there. And I guess if we ever did have a conflict, we had a beer and an arm wrestle and then went that way. So, but it never actually got to that point. We just had beers.
Trial 7.
And figured it
Trial
out.
7.
So fun stuff here. And there's trademark searches up there because the other thing too, when you're thinking about naming your company, you do want a trademark search both in Canada and US, more relevant in Canada obviously, but just to make sure that you're not taking a copyrighted name and things like that. I always like to ask the question, how did you name your company? And well, Luís, your name, it's your name, but
In
go ahead.
this case, it's my name. It's half of one of my last names, basically. But the reason why I did that is because when I opened my company, I wanted it to few personnel. It's like, okay, it's a one-person company, and I want people to know that. I don't want to hide and pretend I am like a conglomerate, which I'm not. So I felt that's like we live in a world that people like more the idea of like, okay, if this is a solo developer, I want to know that. So I went that way, and I do some trademarking as well, and my own brand and some of my games, not all, like the biggest ones, but yeah, like it's more for trademarking is more for protection, but enforcing a trademark is not as easy, but it's easier than enforcing other stuff. So it is basically.
This is the origin of Alpha Dog Games?
Yes.
So the alpha bit is our take on sort of philosophy of getting games into the hands of players early for feedback. So we like to sort of the concept of the early alpha as the alpha dog, and then I guess we're just an aggressive bunch of dudes that want to be the alpha dog. I'm kidding. There was an added bonus with the alpha dog coming first alphabetically, which is something that we didn't think of first. But when you do these trade shows, and like it's sort of like the government, they're out promoting you with all these other countries, whatnot. You're first on the list, and you tend to get a lot of hits and a lot more calls and a lot more meetings. And just an interesting something to think about. It reminds me, there's a game that was on XBLA. It's about falling down mine shafts. It's called like and it's just alphabetically first in every game list. Very fun.
My company is called Bitten. I was making a game at the time with a friend, and the game was Space Cats with lasers. It's cats, and they're flying around on different things. Like there was a ship that was like egg, and different random things, cheese. So my friend's girlfriend was like, "Oh, you should do a ship that is a Bitten toast." And I was like, "I like that." I was looking for a name, and I didn't know what I was gonna do. Like Bitten toast, I like the sound of that, and that's the story. With my other label, which is just like a name, it's not a company itself. The company is still Bitten Toast, but I've been releasing games under Yarn Cat Games. My fiance crochets. There's a lot of yarn around the house. We have cats, yarn cats. Yeah, I didn't spend a lot of time on the names.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to the not spending a lot of time on the games. Also,
On the names in this case.
yeah. As for Jeff's comment, I expect to see an Artwork Studios coming out of this meeting. Yeah, for Gamemode 1, it just refers to one of the game modes in Minecraft, which is creative mode. I think at the time I was like, oh, sorry. I was like, oh man, we can use this name when we go to like ship our game, and it'll kind of like harken back to our roots. I don't know if that's actually going to be the case, but it's just kind of one of those things that sticks. Yeah, we did do a trademark search at the time.
I'm surprised actually that was available.
Yeah.
That's a good name. Thank you. I love names because it's a lot of fun to come up with them and hear the history of them. And I'm a brands guy, so I always like doing deep research into that stuff. And you get bonus points when you have cat in your name or dog. When it's okay, we're gonna get into the games now. So first games and first steps. Like again, going back to when you first started the company. The first things you were doing. Now I know some of you had like very good experience with just like really shipping games quickly and for a week and whatnot. Maybe you can also talk about once you build momentum, how that started to shape up. But when I say find your why, and this is what people are kind of in a position of now. Why are you making this game right now, right? With the team you have now, right? You could make anything in the world. Why are you doing this thing right now? So when we started a company, there was a reason for that, and Jeff will get into that, but I'd love to hear from the others when you first started your game there. And you already touched on the average time of your, how long it took, but if you want to, have any more iteration on that.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that we released came out, that was about a month, and it was a very simple game. The next one that we worked on, I think, was like 7 months. It was a little bit more ambitious. We definitely didn't launch into making our dream game first or anything to that extent. And I mean, like even now, we're working on an indie game for a year and a half, and this is still not our dream game, but it's the right game for the right market, we believe. Yeah, when we joined the Minecraft marketplace, I think it was less like, oh, we have a specific game we want to make, and more we know that games, the kind of like game side of the marketplace is really underserved, and this is a skill set that I have, and that the folks that I'm kind of close with, collaborators, that had, so we're able to leverage that. Yeah, I think we kind of like identified that as the right market, the right time. Specifically, I'd always expected and envisioned that a Minecraft marketplace would come to be. Like we were doing stuff kind of like under the table for years, and this was the first capacity where it was actually official and direct to consumer. And it was starting to get a lot of steam, and I think additionally we were very fortunate because there was like only maybe 5-ish other companies that were established on there at that time, and we had a foot in the door. So it was like ultimately we were lucky to have a business in. Yeah, the first like more substantial game that we worked on, I I think we were trying to leverage some of the Minecraft mechanics that were really popular and we were seeing some trends of, but we hadn't seen specifically anything that was like to this level of interactivity that we were trying to achieve and level of kind of more polished game loop. So we were able to play with some of those ideas and come up with something good. Again, it wasn't our first hit or anything like that, but it was a step in the right direction. And it did, we had to spend, after our first product release, we had to spend a bit more time understanding what was doing well on the market. And we were doing some kind of like early data analysis to wrap our heads around kind of what was trending, but ultimately not just jumping on what was already there, but trying to anticipate what was going to be next.
And sorry, before you hand it off, you're doing something new right now that is your own. On the sort of market research, competitive analysis, without getting into details of anything, did you do a lot of things beforehand before you started to dive into that game right now?
Yeah, it's interesting. We did do a lot of prototyping before we got into this game. We spent a year and a half. I took 2 people over from my Minecraft team and some of my most experienced developers who already knew Unity. And we were like, okay, let's find the fun. I knew kind of like creatively after having shipped like 20 games as director, what sort of things I wanted to work on, and that those were aligning really well with what was currently doing well. Very focused on like immersive storytelling and that side of things, and very interested in the physics side of Unity as well, which is obviously very trendy right now. Yeah, cool.
And
So the question again, like the formulation of the question.
So when you first ended, you talked about making games in like a week and whatnot. But once you maybe started getting momentum and you figured out the kind of games you wanted to make, why were you making those games at that particular time?
If I'm thinking of my first commercial games, they both came out of essentially kind of a scattershot approach of like doing game jams and finding the fun, kind of like how Shawn was saying. Rocket Fist was my first commercial game, and I said that it did not do well when it came out, $3,000 on Steam. On Steam, I managed to get to be one of the first few games, like not like the first 10, but like maybe the first hundreds of games on the Switch. And on the Switch, that game was a really good fit, and it worked out really well. I didn't set out to do that, but it happened, and worked out well for that. The game, I started making it when I was doing a master's degree in digital media, in the Center for Digital Media in Vancouver, and that place is very hands-on and practical in terms of master's degree. They partner up with different companies, and the people in the master's degree kind of work as a research and development team for these companies in a way. So my team was partnered up with Sony, and they wanted to explore the more underutilized features of the PS Vita. The PS Vita at the time was the first mobile console that you could use 2 analog sticks, one on each side. So for the prototype that later became Rocket Fist, I did a little game where 2 people played holding the PS Vita, 1 on each side, with 1 analog stick and 1 button. Because the D-pad on the PS Vita, you couldn't press 2 buttons at the same time, it was all one thing. So I had those limitations to work with. And we did 8 prototypes. I think I programmed maybe half of those on my team. Rocket Fist, the one that became Rocket Fist, was not chosen, so it was a discarded prototype. But we had so much fun playing it ourselves, like me and my friends at the group and in the master's degree. I was like, okay, I really like this game, it's fun, I want to see it completed. This is going to be my first commercial game, so that's how I chose that one. The other one, the one that actually made money right away on Steam and got popular, that one was played by PewDiePie, Markiplier, like all the big guys. It's called What a Box, and you play as a box in an environment full of other boxes, online multiplayer, kind of like a prop hunt kind of thing. So if you stay still, you can like pretend you're part of the environment. That one was a game jam. The theme was, this isn't supposed to be here, hence why the game is the way it is. And it was a lot of fun, a lot of people were playing, like some YouTubers picked it up before it was a commercial project. It came out on the Alpha Beta Gamer website that posts a lot of these free games that are on itch.io, Game Jolt. Got popular on itch.io, Game Jolt, which I also recommend always posting your prototypes there to gauge reactions, see if people are enjoying or engaging with it. So that's kind of like how it worked. It was the other way around. I started the game first without knowing if it was going to work, and then I found out like, yeah, there's actually something.
The box game reminds me makes me think of Rambo hiding in the mud wall.
Yeah.
So
People talk about Metal Gear Solid with the box, like, oh,
Jeff, going back to I guess we're Wraithborn here, telling the story of that, how that came about.
Yeah, so I think we landed on fantasy action RPG because we were all fans of fantasy action RPG. Shawn had some good background doing fantasy art with the Warhammer series. Yeah, we thought it was something we could do. We were really early on the iPhone. Just to date it, like, we had some problems. We had to overhaul the UI completely because of the iPod Touch, making sure if you remember that. So it's like iPhone 4 kind of early iPhone days. And what we thought, we had some really interesting, unique, it wasn't like action RPG was without competitors, right? There were a couple. But we had some really interesting touch, like form factor swipe mechanics. We thought would be cool. We weren't going to be lazy and just stick a V-stick on there. We were going to be super innovative and make our guy fight by swiping and all this stuff. Towards the end of it, we kind of learned the problem with that is with phones, your thumb is on the screen, you can't see the character. That's problem one. Two, it's super sweaty if you're just swiping. I think we've been playing Fruit Ninja or something. It's super sweaty if you're swiping that much. So Apple was like, listen guys, we'll feature this, but just put the V-stick in. Put the V-stick in, make it default. That's what the players want to happen. So we went with the V-stick. That was that game. But if I was looking at sort of like now, if you were choosing your why and why this game, it's sort of like, I think you've got to be interesting and unique. Like, why is somebody going to play your game over somebody else's? If you got a unique take on League of Legends, it better be super unique, right? Because that's a hard audience to yank out of there, or something else. But if you're pursuing something smaller, niche, unique, interesting, I think it's got all kinds of possibilities.
I'll just steal that from yours. On the unique take, I would argue that yes, if you're going for League of Legends, but if you're going for a game that's like more like you played it once and you've seen everything, that's it, there is value in not being unique and trying to, oh, I'll do this game, but I'll do my own spin on it. Like, I love Potato, tiny little game. Every game that comes out that like, this looks like Potato, I want to play that game. Because I know I like Potato and I want more of it. I played way too much, I've seen everything. I want more.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
You can't reskin Potato, but totally.
Yeah.
In that genre, there's all kinds of room to grow. I
Exactly.
think there's some folks out here working in that genre.
It's kind of the idea that people who like master games will play a lot of master games or like board games in terms of Luís.
Yeah, in my case, the whys are a little bit different. So I was at that point like drawing for big companies for 10 years. So when you're drawing for a massive corporation, like you don't choose anything. Like there's meetings and meetings, and after this draw, like if they want to change something, you would change it. So to me, it was more of like, okay, I want to have the freedom to select teams that I'm passionate about, and no one will allow me to. So like I like at that point I had been researching for this game about Japanese yokai for like a solid 5 years. I had been to Japan. I had taken pictures of like all the scrolls that I could about it. So I wanted to make something about that because it was a passion of mine. So like having this creative freedom for me at that point was even more interesting than the outcome of like, okay, this will be my profession, so I should think about marketing or think about how I can market that. But of course, when this becomes your main job, then you cannot just go with passion, but also try to match your passions with stuff that you believe that will be successful. So you have to have a balance there. But at the same time, if you keep your budget low and you have a small team, then like if you have a passion project, you can see it that. So that's what's my why and keeps being my why. Like I need to be passionate about it if I am to work on it.
Thank you. And we'll get more into Kickstarter a little bit later because I'm sure a lot of people want to hear about that. So as we move on here, this is one of the slides from the Unity game development report. And this particular, I know it's really hard to read there, but collectively settling on an idea that is interesting and unique in the market is the most challenging thing for people with less than 10 team members. So this is kind of consistent here. You want to be aligned with your team there and make sure that you're all making something interesting and unique and facing those challenges. So Back to team contractors. We kind of covered a lot of this already, so maybe we'll go over this one a little bit quicker. When it comes to testing working relationships, we've covered a lot of this under pressure. You know, doing game jams, I think, is a good thing to test it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Like doing game jams, or like even in like personal relationships, traveling with someone, like having that close contact. If you move these to a game jam, it's the same idea. It's like you will see this person for like 5 days, at most, that people were like super stressed out. Then you will see if they can handle like a crunch, because this is what this industry is at the end. You will always be almost late, and you always have to work hard hours. So you better like each other, I guess. So absolutely, I think knowing the relationships and building these relationships is super important.
Yeah, completely agree. It's selecting business partners and stuff too, right? It's not a marriage, but it's close to it. I think Shawn alluded to it earlier. It's, yeah, if you're going into business with somebody, you should be sure. Game jam is a great suggestion. Yeah, like make games together first before you figure it out. I like it. But what's the question?
Testing
I think
you covered a lot of it already.
Resolve the issues from arm wrestling, I think we
Yeah.
I agree with them. I have nothing to add.
Fair enough.
Hand it to the one who's business partners' wife.
Yeah, right. I think the only thing that I would add to that is, I guess, to summarize and build on that, is trying to find the end game devs really the perfect place for this, kind of like the lowest stakes places to learn to work with these people. And also to, when you're starting, like, and this is really a cost-cutting measure as well, really just work with kind of the smallest team that you can, the most essential people, and kind of like build that when you know for sure, when you're ready, on as needed basis, basically, and don't jump the gun there. That was really important to keeping the cost low on our indie game development. We were able to do R&D on that project for about a year before we started diving into this game that we're working on now, and then we had another year of really low cost development, also thanks to DMTC on the current project.
Great, thank you. We kind of got through that slide quick, so we're good here. On scope, shipping, and momentum, these are some things that can almost kill your game or can kill your game. Now, when we're thinking of this, things like scope creep, feature obsessions, not finishing or just giving up, burning out, you just got no more time. The last 10% problem is like you got there, everything's in there, but it's just not quite feeling right, and it's just you're hammering away at this. It's like, why is it just not working? Until you have that aha moment, and then you can get over that hump. You know, in terms of this, shipping is a discipline, and early indie games fail from ambition, not from lack of talent. Do you want to elaborate on any of this? Has there been situations in your development where scope creep has come in, feature, obsession, any of this last 10%?
Yes, so many times. This is the curse of game development. We all love what we do, and we want to make some really cool shit. And we get too excited and add too many features and get too hyper-focused on specific things. I've had quite a few Minecraft games that we were just like, oh my god, we could do this, and then we wasted like 8 months of development and a couple $100,000 on some stupid idea. So don't do that. I think it really does come back to the shipping, the discipline side. I 100% agree. It's about finding kind of, again, those low stakes opportunities to get some games out under your belt, and making sure that you're not really like, yes, come into this industry from a place of passion, and then hold some of that bit back for a little while. Don't go jumping into making your dream game first. And this is something we can like hammer home all day, but I really think at the end of the day, it's just like get some games out there. Yes, burnout side of things as well. Definitely have experienced that, and I think that really came back to, again, everybody just being really keen on the project that we were working on. And I love producers. Producers are fantastic. You don't always need a producer. Hi, Jenny. Jenny literally started on Monday, so you don't always need a producer right away. And I think if you're keeping your team small, you can do a lot and a lot of like research yourself to figure out how to keep things on track. But make sure to give that side of game development the attention that it deserves, because it's very easy to just get lost in the weeds and kind of forget where you're going.
would say that you do need a producer, but sometimes you're the producer.
Yeah.
Yeah, because someone is doing that job, but like, yeah.
Yes.
With scope, like definitely I've had that problem before as well. And one thing that I would like to talk about that is you can build up on the idea on sequels. You can start small, limit your scope. If the idea works well, then it's going to be so much faster to build the sequel with a built-in audience. Like Luís said, like you proved yourself the first one, people that like the first one are going to come back for the second one and more. So there's an advantage into building slower over multiple games as well. If you have this big dream idea that has so many features, start with one of the features. Make it a small game. Make a small game with 2 features, now 3 features. You can build up to that. With my first commercial game, going back to Rocket Fist, part of why it took me so long, not just because I was working my off hours when I got home from work and everything, part of why it took so long is because I decided that it was important for the game to have a single player mode, a single player loop campaign. Because the game originally was a versus kind of arena kind of thing. Multiplayer didn't need a single player version. I spent all that time, I added a single player mode with multiple bosses, made it a little roguelike, you kind of had to go through the different sectors and unlocking the sectors. Spent so much time on that. When I came here and like started meeting the indie games scene, I met Trevor, which had played Rocket Fist before knowing me. And he's like, oh, like I love the game on the Switch, I used to play with my friends. I was like, cool, what did you think of the single player? It's like, there's a single player? Yeah. So sometimes you don't need a single player. Sometimes if the game is fun in multiplayer, that's it, that's the game.
Cool. Yeah, I'm going to try and go sort of positive with this one. These are all problems I find when you are either working on your own or working with a very small team and no one is paying the bills, you're paying for all of this and you have a runway, you know what it is. Some of these problems start to go away. If you can't answer these questions honestly and you've got scope creep, you've got big problems. So some of you I know are coming from Ubisoft or other publishers if you've worked in the industry before. There's always a lot of pressure from sort of central publishing. They're paying all the bills and they're pushing down this pressure to make it bigger. So everybody's trying to make it bigger, and even if you miss your deadlines, well, there's another greenlight meeting we can get to, and maybe we can get through that gate, and there's more money, and it's just different stakes. When you're on your own and you're sort of like pushing forward with your vision, it shouldn't be a problem. And if it is, you've really got to where this is coming from, right, and fix it.
For a board game, like you should try to avoid scope creep anyways, because you already have a constriction that is the parts, right? The cards, the minis, whatever you are using on it. So like I usually will have multiple versions of the same game. These will not be published, but it's like starts small, then it's like okay, what is that people like when they play this game? Is this one mechanic? Okay, I will remove the other ones and I will keep it from here. And you like grow in little circles until you find okay, this is the minimum that this game needs to be played. I will focus on get this part done, and then from there, if the Kickstarter goes well, if the campaign goes well, if while you're preparing for the Kickstarter, I see there's like interest, then I will make you an expansion or something else. So try to like get the minimum amount of like most fun you can get, so you don't like waste time in like a project that might not be as loved as you think it is, basically.
Can I jump on that? Yeah, the minimum viable product approach applies very much to game dev and I imagine to board games. One of the ways that we talk about it within something you really want to do, like a regular check-in with, and that's how you identify that scope creep, because identifying can really be one of the challenging things here, and something that every project I think has a risk of going through. I will also say, just like with the current indie market, bigger is definitely not better. Done a lot of market research into this. Has informed the development of the game that we're working on right now. But there's a lot to be said for a game that's got a fun idea that's like quite different with a catchy name and a simple mechanic, and it's really not about the depth, and it's not even necessarily about having a high fidelity art.
Can I just add one little thing there? Not building up on that, but without the box, for instance, after what I learned from Rocket Fist and Scope, I decided that I would give myself 1 month to finish it. And however state it was at the end of that month, it was shipping. It worked out well. Like I shipped it 29 days from idea in my head to Gamemode's team, selling and doing well.
Yeah, it's great. All great tips there too. And I love minimum lovable product because viable, lovable was an emotion. Sell the emotion. That's a game, right? So awesome stuff here too. And a lot of this, again, another quote here from the Unity development report. And just the key words that pop out to me in this are, avoiding a conscious effort to avoid overscoping throughout development, listening closely to player feedback and market signals, which is also touched on, getting player feedback. Nothing is ever set in stone. This is sort of an organic process of making games. You're not just making a product from A to B to C to D and feature check. It's something to test and iterate on, right? You get this intentionally flexible, you're able to adapt and evolve, especially to the feedback, and not only that, to market conditions, which is a big factor right now in trying to succeed in today's world. So, thank you. Okay, as we get into funding and kind of what success looks like to each and every one of you, this is different, right? Whether you're a solopreneur or whether you are shipping board games across the world with realistic physical products, that's a different success criteria than other people, that have a team of, how big's Gamemode one now? 30?
Almost 40.
Almost 40. So much different criteria here for what success is. Yeah, you have the microphone, Shawn, so take it away.
Yes, sounds good. Yeah, it's difficult to define, I think, what success is, and yeah, it very much does depend on the market conditions that you're in. I think for us at Gamemode 1, it was making sure that we were able to support all of our team effectively and that we had enough runway for future projects. I think really the way that we think about profit at the studio is just like it enables us to have the freedom to build what we want to build. And that's been kind of the mission from really the early days, and then trying to stay self-funded and be very vigilant about staying self-funded too.
And while you're on that topic too, I think it's very curious to understand, like, how does the contracts work? Like, without getting into details, but how
Sure.
you get an IP, you're working with Minecraft, like, how does that work?
Yeah, so our business model is divided between, we do a number of like contract projects where Minecraft pays us a lump sum, but that wasn't really how we initially got into it. We've been fortunate to get those since we kind of like made a name for ourselves through our original like games they were making. They were pushing the quality bar, and Microsoft's like, hey, this is really cool. You guys are playing with the new tech in a way nobody else is. Do you want to help us push that envelope further? And we were able to like co-develop some of the new technologies, like bringing a scripting API to Minecraft. Additionally, all the licenses that we've been working with, that was kind of a similar thing. We were able to build a really good relationship with Mojang, again, through making a name for ourselves, through the games that we were releasing. And then they eventually were saying, hey, we've been working on kind of like licensed games internally for a while. We'd love to start like outsourcing that to our really trusted developers who want to be the first to do that. That was an amazing opportunity. So we brought Pac-Man to the marketplace. And then kind of from there, it was like, we reached out to some of those licensors ourselves and also negotiated some deals with Mojang directly and said, hey, we'd love to work on something. Can you guys get us that contract? So there was less of a little like negotiation with them on it. I think it was more hinging and continuing to invest and build that relationship. The way that we kind of imagine it within our studio is like, it's very much always like we make sure that we're taking care of our team first, and then we make sure that we're taking care of our players and being involved with their needs. Because if our team's not taken care of, they're not going to make great games. They're going to be burnt out. They need to be really invested and bought into what we're building. And then our partners and the profits, they come into place, but we're not targeting. We're not like aiming the gun at that customer.
Awesome, thank you, Daniel. So you bootstrapped, right? You've gone through a lot of different iterations, kind of built up your business over time. Is there anything there on the self-funding, the best practices that you could recommend, or success for you now, today? What does that look like?
I think success for me, like as a essentially solo developer, depends a lot on like how much did I put into this project as well. Like with Rocket Fist, going back to the first one, spent a year and a half, made 3,000, not successful. Like I did not get paid for that essentially until later on the Switch and everything. But if I made Rocket Fist in a month and it sold 3,000, I would be like, yeah, no, that one worked out, because like different sales over time, like will increase a little bit here and there. So if I can make a game in a month and make like 6,000-7,000, to me that's a successful game. And all the little releases, even the ones that don't sell as well, every sale they do something. And the ones that sell better, and the sales they do better. So there is, you build a little passive income portfolio, like games that you're not updating anymore, they're still selling. We're gonna keep on selling. So you gotta think about that, and each new release is an opportunity for a little bit boost on the coffers of the company, but you gotta make sure to not spend everything and keep your costs low to make it sustainable. Like, okay, now I have this much runway, like as you guys were saying, like I have this much runway in the company, I need to release something within the next whatever months to get another little boost, and keep going like that. So that's how you make it sustainable as a solo developer. Not every game is going to do great. Some games do better, some games do worse. But overall, if you can find some that do well enough, I guess you're keeping running for longer. But if the other ones that do a little less, like a nice script I released, I think last year, that one I did in about a month was $7,000-ish on release and still selling something. I'm happy. That one paid for itself. It's not a big release, it's something.
Yeah, so building up a portfolio over time, your success gets built up.
One thing that I just thought about that also helps is like building for other platforms, like Rocket Fist didn't do well on the Steam, found its audience on the Switch. Each platform that you add to that is also a whole new launch with new attention on the game, can even cross-pollinate to the Steam sales as well. So if you have a way of targeting different platforms, definitely go for it as well. Like ports for Switch, Xbox, whatever you can, port to. New releases, new launch, new little bumps.
All right, and Jeff, before you start to get into that, to frame this, because AlphaDog went through a number of different funding models and whatnot, do you want to talk about the first game, how it was funded, and then also some of the other models that we kind of did over the years, just touching base on that?
Sure. Wraithborn was funded a blend of shareholder loans, which is the money you take out of your bank account and put into the company. A bank loan, which is something, it's not your money, but it may as well be because you do owe it to the bank. They will come looking for it if you fail. And then an ICO loan, which is a really nice loan, which is, you do owe ICO the money, but they're really nice about how they make you pay it back. And if the company fails, they're not going to come after your house, I don't think anyways. So that was the first funding for Wraithborn with that mix. After that, we did a few work for hire contracts just to keep the studio open, lights on, going and stuff. So that would be working on other people's products, which was never the sort of the vision for the studio, just something you do sometimes to pay the bills. And eventually started landing publishing deals with publishers. This is really the good stuff that worked well for us is somebody pays you to make your game. It's really hard to maintain ownership of your IP if somebody else is paying for it. The only time I've ever been able to do that is before AlphaDog. Back before the 360, with the Xbox 360 was launching, Microsoft was looking for basically content for their new digital distribution platform called Xbox Live Arcade. So they were cutting these really sweetheart deals to developers who we had an interesting game at a different studio that we were doing that we got a really sweet deal where we kept the IP and they paid for it, which was amazing. Yeah, we did some CMF funding, which is good. That's CMF is a nice resource. I think in today's climate, those publishing deals I'm talking about are really, really hard. Those publishers, we got a few of ours at AlphaDog because we had a track record. One, with AlphaDog Games we were creating. Two, because we had relationships in the industry that's working for these publishers or other people in the capacity so that people trust you. Because you've been working with them at THQ or Xbox or wherever. There's just people that know that you know how to ship games and you're pleasant to work with. Nowadays, getting those deals without a full demo, without traction, without showing people you have an audience, it's really difficult. There's no shortage of indie publishers out there though, right? For like PC, indie, they're out there. It's just difficult. And CMF is difficult right now too, I'm told, because there's a lot of, I think everybody knows, out-of-work developers. That's been going on for a couple of years, so there's a lot of people pitching into CMF. They're kind of at capacity now, so.
Yeah, it also takes time when you submit to a Canadian, CMF is Canadian Media Fund. If you were to submit a project today, You're probably not finding out if you're even successful in that for about 6 months, right? And it could take longer. It might even take longer to get the actual money. So you can't like look at it as like, yes, and today I'm going to rely on this 6 months from now, right? So you kind of have to get ahead of the curve there. And once you're in that system, you sort of build up a Canadian Media Fund project, a prototype, then you submit early, so that your timing is kind of stacked up as you try to get there for the Canada Media Fund. But it is challenging with the Canada Media Fund because there's, thousands of people across Canada looking for that same kind of cash, right? You're all competing for that same thing. So yeah, it's highly competitive, but it still is done. And Luís?
Yeah, for me, I like most of my games are like funded through Kickstarter. But when you say funded through Kickstarter, it's not really just that. It's because like you don't go to Kickstarter with an idea, you go with a finished product. So you have to have everything already. So basically, you already like have paid your most of your investment. You will fund manufacturing with the Kickstarter money, basically. So to me, when I say what is a successful project, it is not just about like, oh, how many people you can get on that page. Because like, yes, you can get like most people, if you're not ready to launch a Kickstarter, you will not get funded, period. Then you wasted your time and you also wasted your marketing budget. But let's say you are ready for that. You also need to, like, a successful project for me is not like, oh, I raised $500,000 on this. It's like, was I able to see these completed and manufactured and delivered in time, in the time that I promised? Okay, that's good. Did I manage to like answer all messages through this campaign, like thousands of messages through this whole year? Do all of the customer support later and stuff? Because like for a board game, I know that for digital games, these usually companies are not super like talkative. But I think for board games in particular, and if you could do this to a video game, I'm pretty sure that it would work as well. If you are there and if you are building a community, launching your next project is much easier. You spend way less in marketing later if you have those 2, 3, 5,000 people that will buy whatever you show. So it's like there is a time investment into making a good product, but the time investment that you have to commit into creating a community, I think is much more important and leads to much more success in the long run, basically. So that's what I would say is being successful in my business.
That's awesome. And you can hold on to the mic because we're going to get into some market stuff in the next slide. So you can continue some of this thought. As we're talking about building an audience, going to market, board games is really interesting, actually. How, in your sense, how do you know your audience? Like, are you starting to cater to the same audience that you've built up over time? And secondly to that, as you're doing Kickstarter campaigns, are you spending money on marketing, or is it all guerrilla style marketing, just on social media, all of those things? Like, how does your marketing work for you?
There's a bit of everything, really. You have to have a marketing budget, especially because like Kickstarter is usually 20 days to a month thing there. It's like your game is there for 20 days. And what you will have is that if you manage to build your community, and you can build your community even before your first game, you can start building that by being on the forums, talking to people, showing what you're making. Like I would say, do not show if it is not like 99% ready, because then it's not ideal. but like start getting people excited for it, because like all these people that you can target before the game is released, you need to make them come into the campaign the first 3 days. These first 3 days is what is important for the algorithm to show later on. But it's a month that the game will be there. So you need to have the game being successful, even if mildly, through the slow days, which is like most of the campaign, because there's like a big influx of people in the beginning, then like it slowly goes down and then goes very down, and then slowly builds up to the end. So like I usually do something that people call an early bird. There's like some advantages for people who buy it in the first few days. To me, like extended days for like a week usually, and then in the 2 weeks that is slow, like I keep doing like social things that people are there participating, talking and stuff, just to keep the vibe good. And it's also good for people to like, it's a month that they have to like basically talk to you and do things with you there, which is fun. But it's also a process that at the same time you are running ads. The ads are not there most of the time to bring you money. It is for the graphic not to look down. Because like a Kickstarter is not the people giving you money, it's like people promising you money until the end of this month. Because at any point of that month, they can just cancel it. So like you need to have ads. You need to have ads because then you can show steady growth even in lower days. So when you get to the end, and you have like this big boost of like a lot of people who just followed your project, and then they can come and they can see, like they see you interacting. If you see people happy, the chances of them buying it at the end is higher. So I think there's a lot that needs to be done there. There's a lot, like in video games as well, like you benefit from being friendly with content creators. There's no way to describe it. Even people that you actually will have to pay to make your game, if they don't like you, even paying the game, it will not be a good video. So like you will benefit from having these relationships. These a world of like creating a game and like sitting in your bubble and not interacting with either the people who you make the game for or the creators that will. This doesn't exist, at least for indie people. You have to take advantage of like you are one person, be personable. That's how I see it.
Awesome, thank you. And Jeff, I'll frame a question for you before you get to that. And in terms of Kickstarter too, no matter if it's a board game or a Steam game or a PC game or anything, right? You still have to have that marketing budget, because really Kickstarter is a marketing push at the end of a game, not so much funding the beginning of a game like it used to be when it first came out. A lot of people were kind of bitten by that, investing, even what were the biggest flops? Or like $1 million investments. The game never got released, and a lot of people were upset and angry. And then what happened on Kickstarter was that games, not board games, but games started to not go on that platform because people just looked at it as like, well, it's just going to take my money and not deliver. So it's shifted right now, right? So Kickstarter is more or less a marketing campaign than anything, and it's the same for board games. He already has a completed game, it's ready to go, it's ready to ship. Because board games also, if you don't deliver, people are mad.
Oh yes.
Very mad, yeah.
Yeah, so basically you have to ship it, and you have to ship in a timely manner. Like it's usual for people to be like 6 months late, but if you do this once, you will never do it again, basically.
There goes the business model.
Yeah, and like for me, like I prefer not to overlap campaigns even. Like I prefer to like, okay, I will do this campaign, I will deliver this campaign, and after it's delivered, when everyone from the next campaign can go back and see like, oh, all these people, like 10,000 people are happy, we'll buy it.
Yeah.
So it's easier to do it that way. So basically it is a marketing space, very competitive, but at the same time, you can still, if you are into like beginning there, you can still like make these connections, you can still meet people, you can still be present on the forums and stuff, because while like 10,000 people, you can still answer them. You cannot answer 1 million people, but 10,000 people is doable. You can do it by yourself. That's my view.
Just so one little thing there. Luís also goes to events where board game enthusiasts are, and he meets his audience in person as well. And you mentioned that you learn a lot from
Oh, yeah.
talking to the people that are actually playing the board game and seeing what they. You can answer this actually.
Oh, sorry. So basically, this is another thing. Like most major companies, the big companies, you will have the main guy sitting on a back room signing deals. He's never there at the front, never talking to people. And I do not believe that. And Daniel saw this because like I prefer to be in the front table and talking to people, not even like necessarily selling, but like drawing in their game boards, talking about what they liked, what they didn't. Because this way, I know what they want to see in another game of mine. In my case, it's much easier to grow the same audience because it's all so my drawings, right? So like if you like the game that you played and you like my art style, the chance of you liking a different game of mine with the same art style is much easier. So like to me, it's much more important that I see actually what people are excited about in person, and like you keep like grounded to your audience basically, than like signing up publishing deals, because the publishing deals honestly like it's, if you compare the money raised, it's not worth it.
Yeah. Thank you. And you know, and you can add it to Jeff there. So on that note too, like the interviews, this is what you're essentially talking about. You're interviewing your target audience and getting feedback. That's worth its weight in gold, right? What is it? Something like every interview is worth 100 survey people, something like that. It's a weird ratio, right? So surveys are great, but you got to be in the thousands. You got to take it with a grain of salt. But the actual interviews of talking to people who are playing your game are worth its weight in gold. Jeff, when we're talking about this, I want you to think about, and you can think about your own thoughts as well, but specifically with Mighty Doom on some of the playtesting, focus testing, early access, those types of things, but also anything else you have to add.
I guess we have a big philosophy of listening to players, and it sounds kind of stupid, but if you hear something over and over again from a group of players, particularly if it's designed for a mass audience, and you're trying to get a very large group of people to play it and like it. In the case of Mighty Doom, that was originally like a stop and shoot mechanic, and we would hear over and over again, Doom is run and gun. Like maybe we should try this thing, and it worked out for that game. But I want to hear Daniel talk about wish lists. I think this is going to be a valuable topic.
So Steam, Daniel.
Okay.
Steam wish lists, landing pages, everything. Maybe not everything.
In Steam, wish lists are very important. You want to have about 7,000 wish lists for release. That's nobody knows exactly how the algorithm works, but that's the common knowledge that people work with. The more wish lists, the better, and people can also unwish list your game, so you get to see not only the wish list going up, but sometimes going down. So you want to keep gathering momentum and participating in festivals, very important. There's lots of different festivals that happen in Steam. If you are a part of the ISNS Game Dev Discord, I know that Trevor is always posting over there the festivals, forums to put your game in different festivals. It's very important to do that. One thing that I find that's very important nowadays as well is teaching, like itch.io, Game Jolt, Newgrounds, different websites where people can play an early version of a game and get not only feedback through that, but also put in your demo like a button wish list on Steam, put it in your page. If you can do a web build, a lot of people on these kind of websites, they see they have to download your game, they might just skip to the next game, but there's even filtering games with web builds, and a lot of people, if you just have to press a button and play, that's way easier to get them to check out your game and give you feedback. I think that's mostly that I can think of.
I'll try and keep this brief here. I think we're running over time. I think +1 everything Daniel's saying there is a really good strategy. I will say really quickly as well, like do not, especially for the indie game market, don't waste your time on paid ads. Personal, just to put something a little subjective out there, but it's really not the going strategy these days. It really comes back to what you're actually making and making sure that you're making something that is highly marketable. So marketability starts kind of day one, and your strategy leverages around that. Influencer campaigns are really important as well, but you do want to kind of start with an owned audience. and try and engineer your game so that it's like highly clippable. This keeps coming up in the indie market. It's highly relevant right now. I know also, like, as a specific shout out, there's a company that's actually like based in this space, Jester, where they connect indie game devs with creators to try and like, you know, get it to the relevant audience. Because again, like, the goal is not to necessarily get your game in front of Markiplier or PewDiePie. That'd be fantastic if that happened. But the highest kind of like conversion and impact places are actually getting more medium to small size creators and getting broad reach there.
And I would say, if you're trying, like, you put your game out there, it's not getting traction, maybe move to another game.
Yeah. This is why you don't do paid ads, is you can just keep doing that forever. But if you're putting it out there and it's not organically getting the clicks that you want, okay, maybe you're not working on the right thing. And you know, I know that Luís was saying, you know, like 99%, maybe that's the case for board games, but for video games, you probably want to start getting it out there in front of people around the like 50% mark, where things are polished. You have enough of the game to show that's polished and looking good, and you can like get some clicks. You don't need to get it to done yet. I definitely wouldn't recommend that as well, because the audience that you're building it for, they will find it, they will tell you what they want. So be ready to change.
Which is very interesting, because that's the next quote. Talking about the Unity Game Report here again, and you know, markets, talking about market validation, talking about if your idea fits and what's going on right now. You know, looking at how to define the scope of the project and keep it development as dense as possible. So, look, this is the last thing. If there's going to be questions after this, generally what we're looking at, and we'll say last comments, but we'll save that for quick Q&A instead, okay? You know, one last thing here, as we're going and closing here, the other thing that is kind of prominent in the report, and a hot topic obviously, is AI and use in games these days, which is actually quite significantly different this year than it was compared to last year. Maybe if you guys actually want to talk about that as well, I'll answer your question, but there are companies that are using, you know, LLMs for prototyping, system design validation, tuning logic, things like this, looking at it to accelerate their interpretation and internal planning. But it's not a replacement for humans. They're really looking at ways to use it as assistance. And I guess in closing with this, as a last comment, are there any ways that any of you are leveraging AI today?
It's a great question. It's definitely disrupting our industry. I think for the indie game industry specifically, it's, you know, saturating the market very quickly, and something that's been really important to us is to make sure that we can stand out in that highly saturated market. And, you know, AI is never, you hear us all the time, it's cliche, but AI doesn't replace human taste, but it can help you get places quicker, not necessarily better, but quicker. So, you know, we use it intentionally with that in mind. Never use it for generating content or even concepts, but it does kind of like help to bridge the gaps in some workflows.
Anyone else? Where do you want to go?
Yeah, I echo the sentiments. I don't use for anything more creative, but in coding, especially like the tab auto-completion at times, like, yeah, it's there, I see what I want, tab works. And for boilerplate stuff as well, like when I'm writing C++ code with Godot, all the variables I need to expose, it's a bunch of boilerplate code. AI does that real quick and easy. It's like, okay, expose these variables, done.
Cool. Yeah, I use it for administrative stuff, like legal tax advice. I don't know if I advise that, but that's what I use it for. It's a really good technical resource too. It's like a manual. Rather than read the manual, you can ask it. I think you probably need to. It's wrong a lot, so you have to know that, oh, it's wrong. You have to be able to say that. So having some knowledge helps, but I can't use it to write code or just my process. I don't always know where I'm going, so I like to explore. And AI is not the place to do that, because I would rather explore my own head than let the AI do it.
For me, I think AI in particular, like the most use I get from it is to proof check, as English is not my first language. So it's basically like a soft piece of software that you use to validate it. Like, okay, I'm not like saying something that it means completely opposite things here. But like for the creative process, like creative process is already like only like 30% of what I do, but is the reason why I do all the other 70%. So it's like, why would I give the one thing that I love about this process to somebody else or some other two to do it instead of me. So yeah, that's I don't use it because I prefer to just do it.
Awesome. Thanks for the hot takes on that. And very hot topic, of course. So in closing here, as we get to the end here, just to recap, whether you're a small studio or solo, the ideas are, you're coming to create the ideas you care about. You're not really looking for polished decks to pitch around right now. It's going to come down to your demo, your playable demo. You want to ship something. You want to keep it lean the best you can and learn again, much in a similar situation that Daniel's flow has been, for, especially as a solopreneur, right? And with Minecraft, starting small and then building and iterating off of these ideas. The same thing with Luís. As you had a job, you started small, you started build and build and build, and same thing with Alpha Dog as well. As we started as 3 people, expanded, and took on larger games and bigger projects and partners as we went. No matter what, you got to be scrappy. You have to be resilient, especially in today's market. And you have to have discipline to keep you on target to actually ship it, right? Build something first. The rest will come to follow. You build something good, that's like your portfolio, your resume that you hand from person to person. And if it's really good, the key there is to get other people talking about it for you, right? If you can plant seeds, talk to everybody here and say, and they like your game, it's like, yeah. And then you get them telling their friends that they're telling, that they like this game, hey, check this out. That's the biggest thing. Word of mouth is still the strongest marketing out there, especially in today's time, without any marketing dollars. So that comes down to building a product, building something fun that you're passionate about, right? And as we go through here, another quote here, we talked about resilience. The industry is changing. There's market shocks all around. There's AI, there's platform shifts, there's funding cycle challenges, there's all of these things here. So you really, really do have to, and this is not just here, this is everywhere in the world right now, right? But you have to keep your head down, deal with this adversity, and then you'll come out stronger in the end. And when it comes to, all of these new things, emerging technologies, the last thing that I like to quote from Ted Lasso, original from Walt Whitman, is be curious, not judgmental. In a world of change and uncertainty, choosing curiosity over judgment is an act of courage. So, thank you to that. The last thing I'll say here is that XP Connect Atlantic. So this is a conference coming here locally, and it's coming in June. And as the Interactive Society of Nova Scotia, we're helping them out, obviously, but they are coming here. I was in Charlottetown last year. They've had conferences in Toronto. They host MIGS now in Montreal. They're the ones that run it. And they have another conference in Vancouver. I bring this up because this is the thing here where it's everyone here in this room that this affects. The more that we support showing up and showing the province here that this is a thriving game industry, the better it's going to be for everyone, right? So I strongly encourage everyone to participate in the conference coming up in one way or another. There's going to be a lot of great international talks, and we'll have more details from Jason Lapine as it comes out. But the talks will be starting to come out as well. So that is a great opportunity to showcase your work, to take part in it. If you're making a game, there could be places there to help, get exposure there, to connect to other publishers who are looking for games. So it's right here on your doorstep, right? So it's all to us, ultimately, as a game industry, to make sure that this thing is a success for everyone here, okay? Thank you.
All right, so we're a bit over time, but this is such a good topic, and I'm so glad we're able to cover all of these topics. So we have about 5 minutes we can take for questions. I'm going to be the mic runner, so how about if you have a question, put your hand up, and maybe for the panelists, if you want to answer, like if you have something you want to add, put your hand up, and we'll make sure you all get a chance to answer. If your question, like if you have a burning question, or if you think of something later, or we don't have time to get to it, feel free to post it in our Discord. I believe all of our panelists are on our Discord. We also have a lot of other really experienced people on there, so feel free to post it there, and we'll make sure that it gets answered. And I'll be annoying and like ping people too, so you can absolutely do that. But in the meantime, does anyone have a question? You're closest still.
Thank you. My question is, so obviously, when you're working in a team and you are all gathered around a particular experience that you want to create, as time goes on, things come up. You may be coming up with ideas respectively, and all of a sudden you may have different ideas of how you want your game to look, and this can lead to a lot of friction. Now, obviously, the one thing you could do is from the get-go is to establish what kind of player experience do we want to have, i.e. what kind of experience do we envision players to have. But in case you do that and things get a bit touch and go further down the line, how do you make sure that you course correct things so that everyone, so that there's a bit of de-escalation and you are back on track?
Let's talk about it.
I can start, but I think some of the most valuable thing you can have early on, that honest conversation that I talked about, how you're planning on, resolving these conflicts as they come up, is one thing. Secondly, from a design perspective, the concept of pillars, right? What is this game about? Who is it for? If you start, we agree, yep, this is what we're making. If those start shifting, there better be a really good idea. You're probably off track and not going to end up in a good place. It's going to crash and burn if those pillars just get wiped away, right? You want to talk about conflict resolution or something?
Yeah, it was less on the conflict resolution side. Again, similarly on pillars, definitely lead with goals in your development so that you can be aligned really early on. On the conflict resolution side, I think it's like make sure that you're partnering with people of high quality people. But also, it can help to test it with your audience, especially if you're trying to kind of lead with a merit-based decision-making system.
Yeah, I guess a quick point on that. I like data as well, like data-informed kind of decisions, not totally made by it, but if you can't collect data or talk to people about it, what feels right, take those things both into consideration, right? Sometimes what people say and think is completely different from the actual data, right? So you really have to look at both sides of those, and that's coming from a free-to-play, mobile free-to-play kind of sense, but you could do it in indie games as well.
So don't die on every hill, I think is another one. Sometimes you just have to move on and be willing to compromise.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I think I saw some hands in the back. So I'm gonna go this way.
Hello. So if you have a game idea and you're entering production and you want to go in the direction of partnering with a publisher, how and when do you start presenting your projects to publishers?
Back in the day, you could take a pitch deck in and try and get that deal done with a pitch deck. I think it's really hard in this environment to do that. I think we touched on it a little bit earlier. Your best case, like these guys were saying, get it in front of your community, get them excited about it. If you're showing traction, now you actually have leverage when you're talking to a publisher, which you absolutely need in today's environment. But that's my answer would be traction. I think if you can show wish lists, if you can show an excited community, people buzzing about it that want to play it, that gives you the most leverage.
All right, next question.
Hi, lovely talk, beautiful, thank you. So we heard a couple of success stories tonight about targeting less popular platforms or maybe a new platform and finding success there. I just wanted to know if you had any advice about kind of identifying that and identifying maybe a less popular space that you could be making games that you might have. There's hunger there, you might find success there. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's it kind of varies on whether it's a or trying to find the right platform, but also trying to find the right market niche. Would highly recommend VG Insights, Video Game Insights, to do some early market analysis, and you can get a really good sense of underserved markets based on kind of the ratio of success of the games that are in that market and how saturated it is and how currently relevant it is. In terms of identifying up and coming markets, UGC is certainly an interesting space right now. Minecraft is slightly difficult to get into, but if you can kind of show that you understand players really well, then you can get in. And once you're in, it's a really good place to be. I would highly recommend it, especially as the market continues to grow. Also, specific kind of call it. This wasn't a good fit for Game of One, but Roblox has more daily active users now than Steam, which is mind-blowing, and I think it's like more than a lot of consoles combined. So there's definitely a lot of potential there. These emerging markets, they each have their own challenges. Like, you know, for Roblox, comparatively to Steam, Steam is for indie increasingly very viral hit driven. Roblox is even more viral hit driven. So it's definitely a matter of like aligning it with the skill set that you have.
And just to, I guess, add to the previous question as well, both of these things are all related. I look at doing the research and market, like I look at a lot of market trends, whether it's Steam, I do a lot of mine on mobile, but trying to find where you fit, where the opportunity is. When you're talking about traction, yes, it's evidence-based, right? Traction right now, who's your community, how big is your community, your Steam list, right? But it's also the market. Who are you making it for, and how big is that actual market, and can you address that market, right? Can you actually find those people? You know, so you really have to do your research there on the game itself and the market and the community, because all those three things work together, right? And that's where the evidence-based traction is coming from, that all investors or publishers are looking for right now.
All right, I think we have time for one last question. Is anyone like burning with a question? Maybe, oh, I see like a really high hand back there. I'm going by whose hand is the highest?
Hey, hello. Thanks so much for the talk. It was amazing, especially coinciding with GDC. It was perfect timing. And shout out for the lasso thing. I think we all need a please sign. And I have two questions, hopefully, I guess small, but kind of separate. So with early access, like, does any of you have like any experience or recommend it? Why yes or not when shipping like a game? Yeah.
So for one on mobile, we did a lot of early access, usually on Google, before even soft launching, and you get a lot of feedback. It's fairly open-ended on mobile as well, because you can really change your game and things like that without too much kind of attention and ratings and things. You also get two-way communication when people comment on that, so you can really develop that relationship with your community of, you know, answering questions and things like that. So on mobile is very valuable. Who wants to answer maybe on Steam?
I can't speak with a lot of proprietary. I haven't experimented much with it. What I understood from it is that your first launch is your biggest marketing need, and if you release on early access, that is your first launch. Doesn't matter if it's early access or not. And a lot of people have a negative view of early access. So I usually avoid it because I don't want the first viewers like, oh, this game is incomplete, it's buggy, like that's what people usually see it. Again, I'm not speaking for experience, this is what I think it happens, but yeah.
Yeah, we're in a similar boat, so not speaking from direct experience here, just the research that I've been doing into it, because we've been targeting early access for our game. It really depends also on the scale of your game. Something that I've seen, there is a lot of negative opinions about early access, and that does turn some people away. Surprisingly, we've seen games come out recently, which, you know, would be considered a buggy mess on early access, but because it released in 1.0, people are okay with it. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. If you're shipping something small, it's probably worth just going direct to 1.0. Plus one on what Daniel said as well, though, you do get two big marketing beats with early access. If you play your cards right, you have your early access kind of early launch, and then you can have your 1.0 launch as well, which can be a really big boom. But again, you have to, it's missed if you don't do anything with it. Like that's a point for you to hook into, and then to spend some marketing budget on.
Okay. So about the IP and reaching out, like you make something for a specific IP, and like the process of reaching out to that, I know it's like buried under NDAs a lot, but as far as I can tell, like how much of the like a demo is like acceptable to be like make something polished before reaching out, and I know in terms of like putting it in front of an audience, it could, I don't know if it like benefits because of something very specific like other games, if it's not an IP, putting it in front of an audience and get a feedback. or like reach directly, make something and reach directly and see if it's something that they want to have. So yeah.
I can speak to that really quickly, and Shawn or Jeff, you guys might have some sense of my add to that as well. It depends personally on the size of the IP. For a lot of the big IPs, you kind of have to be in the right place at the right time for it to work out, and it's not really even a matter of demo or prevent. It's merit, it's experience, it's the games you've already shipped. For smaller IPs, you might be able to swing it and get something in front of them, and if you can feel like you can get a good direct line into that IP holder, then maybe you're in a good spot to do that. To speak to the Minecraft side specifically, a lot of IP holders want to be on Minecraft because it's a great way to market their game, and they think that they can make some money doing it too. So again, it's just like positioning yourselves as reliable, trustworthy, experienced. IP deals don't typically come to first-time developers. That's something that after you've shipped a couple games, and they know they can lean on you because they're putting something they care deeply about in your trust.
You're talking about making a game based on somebody else's IP and then like going to them and trying to. I would recommend against that. I've made that mistake before. The problem is you can develop that and go to them, and now you've wasted your time if they say no. On the other side of that, the idea from a business model standpoint that you would approach them and see if they want to pay for your game is usually not how the deal works. Usually there's a minimum guarantee that goes the other way. They'll be more than happy to talk to you about whatever their IP is, and then they'll ask for $500,000, whatever they want, unless it's Marvel, and then they'll ask for $50 million, whatever, to make their game, right? Usually the money flows the other way. It could be if you've got a great fit and you got financial backing and you feel like you can do it and their minimum guarantee is reasonable, and you got a really cool brand, it makes sense. But from a business model standpoint, I would develop something cool first, and then say, hey, look how your IP would fit on this cool thing that everybody loves. And then you get it, again, it's leverage, you get a much better deal that way.
Well, thank you so much, everybody. A round of applause for our fantastic So great to see such talent and experience right here in Nova Scotia. So once again, if you have any remaining questions, feel free to post those on Discord or come to our AGM on March 25th and we can continue the discussion there. Anything to...
No, thank you, Jenny, for the introductions and everything, and thank you all for coming here and to VOLTA for the awesome space. This is our first event here. And thank you, Adam, for recording as well. This is excellent. We will be probably posting this after. We didn't have a live stream for this one. Didn't really know how the setup and everything was, so just kind of went. And plus, wanted people here. It's really good to communicate in person. So yeah, we'll be around if you want to have other questions here to chat and whatnot. Happy to get deeper into all of these topics.
How long do we have to be around?
8:30, I think. But if people, there's no plan for after. But if people are organically deciding to go somewhere, and mingle and stuff like that, by all means, head out. Right. So yeah, whatever's open on Tuesday down Argyle Street. Thanks, everyone.